Looking for the latest on the Jazz, Utes, Cougars, and Aggies? Yeah, we've got you covered. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5, the Sports Zone.
There's no comments because Scotty's locked into softball, Lloyd. Come on, man.
Fascinating.
Know your audience.
Top of the fourth.
Know your audience, okay.
Top of the fourth. Tennessee's leading Oklahoma 3-1.
There's some real pitching on the mound today.
Tennessee pitchers bringing the heat.
And Oklahoma, too. Yuck. Man, those pitches come at you fast, don't they?
Imagine that thing coming at you about 70 miles an hour and coming up instead of curving down.
We've been watching a lot of softball in these studios lately, bud. Lot of softball.
Look, when we walk in, it's on. It's not like I'm specifically turning it on.
Are you sure? You're not texting Lloyd? Make sure softball's on when we get into studio.
I'm not coming in studio unless we have softball on.
I know you love to call a softball game.
I had an absolute blast.
Does she not have boondoggles on those glasses? How is she keeping those on her head?
I don't know, but yeah, how is she?
I don't know. That must be a tight-fitting glass. Athletes usually wear a boondoggle?
Oh, yeah. Ooh, just a bit outside.
Or at least athletic glasses, the ones that kind of strap onto the head.
Yeah, like the old Thurl Bailey goggles.
Yeah. Who's the big one? Was it Elgin Baylor? Who was the...
Kareem.
Who's the most well-known goggle wearer in the NBA?
Kareem, by far.
Was it Kareem?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, joining us from Big 12 meetings, it is Cougar insider Mitch Harper, kind enough to join us. Mitch, how are you?
What's up, Mitch?
Hey, doing great, guys. It's, pretty eventful meetings here at the Big 12 and a lot to unpack, so excited to be on and talk about it with you.
All right, so first off, let's start with, is there any thoughts, concerns about what the Big Ten and the SEC are up to right now?
Definitely, because, the Big 12, it's pretty clear that they want to go with a 5+11 college football playoff model, but at the same time, that would have still only put, one team in to the college football playoff last year. And I was just, moments ago talking with Kalani Sitake about the playoff format, and, he endorses whatever your mark wants to move forward with. And he's big on wanting to prove it on the field. But, as we know, with the college football playoff committee, they can always find certain ways to justify things. And it's like, they almost were forced to put SMU in because SMU had a 13th data point and, Alabama did not, and they had 3 losses and SMU only had 2. So, and BYU, oddly enough, was the team that beat that SMU team. So it's kind of just, it's going to be interesting to see how the direction of, college football and college basketball goes. But, a lot of talk about postseason expansions here. And, I think the Big Ten and SEC, there's reason to be, it's interesting their commentary, but I think that, 5+11 makes sense for college football. And I think an expanded NCAA tournament, which I don't think that's needed, but, you can get you more bids potentially in the Big 12. And what does that mean? That means more money. And that's the name of the game and really all of this when it comes at the end of the day.
Hey, Mitch, why do you think that your mark or anybody else related to the Big 12 doesn't max out the BYU-Utah rivalry game? Why do they stick it in a random October weekend?
It's a great question, and it's one that I really want to dig in more a little bit here. We're going to be talking with the director of football here at the Big 12, Scott Draper here soon, and it's definitely a question that I want to ask in greater detail, because it does feel like a game where, okay, if you want to have it in an unconventional spot, we'll own a certain weekend. Don't just toss it around. And what's the rhyme and reason behind it? If it's not going to be the final week of the year, okay, that's fine. But, have it own a certain weekend of the calendar, and just going from November 9th last year to October 18th this year, it just seems kind of random, and there's no rhyme and reason to what is going on. Now, they have said in the past that they do want to, spread out the Big 12 rivalries. There's 4 protected rivalries in the league. BYU and Utah is one of them, and they want to spread it out. And there's been a lot of, TV executives and personnel here at these Big 12 meetings, and they're a key piece to how these meetings are structured. There was just moments ago, the ESPN college sports programming director who had he was inside a meeting and came out, and so they're heavily involved with these meetings. And is it a method of what the networks are saying? That we don't know for sure, but you have to think that they're being advised in some capacity on that. But that is something I want to find out more in regards to BYU and Utah for sure.
In terms of talking to Kalani Sitake, you asked the great question to Brian Santiago at his press conference about Jake Retzloff. Is there any further kind of clarification? I'm sure there's really not, but is there any conversations being had with Kalani in terms of any updates there?
I did ask Kalani about Jake Retzloff, and he said similar commentary as Brian Santiago, that basically referring to BYU's statement and that it's an ongoing civil lawsuit, and they didn't really have any comment. What Kalani did say, though, from the football side of things, was that he does feel very good about his quarterback room, and he didn't, leave out anyone. He was, including all of it, but he did point out that he likes Bear Bachmeier, bringing him in. We talked specifically about him. I asked him about Bear Bachmeier because he was a spring portal addition, and they really like his talent and ability to come in and compete, and have a chance to be, on that depth chart this fall. So, but as far as specifically with Jake Retzloff's civil lawsuit and what his status was or is with the team, Kalani didn't have any direct comment, because that's what I asked him. I asked him what specifically is his status right now with the team, and he just said he had to point to BYU's statement and that it's an ongoing investigation.
So did he make a similar comment as Santiago in terms of when they both found out?
He did not. He didn't to discuss when he found out. I'll admit I didn't ask him when he found out the timeline of when he found out. He just kind of referred to the statement of Jake Retzloff. Well,
you didn't ask Santiago either, and Santiago threw it in there. What were your thoughts when he said that?
I thought it would just kind of falls in line with BYU's statement that they acknowledged in the statement that the civil lawsuit was filed that day, and that checks out, where it was, I believe, Wednesday, May 21st, 8 days ago, and that's when we all found out as far as the lawsuit itself. So that makes sense from the civil lawsuit, and then that's kind of how I kind of read into that comment.
Do you think, and again, I'm asking you to speculate here a little bit, but there's got to be I got to imagine there's got to be like a drop dead date in terms of, is he available, is he not available? And is that before fall camp? Is it in the middle of fall camp? I mean, is there a moment where as BYU as a football team, you're like, we've got to prepare for the season without you?
Yeah, I feel like it's no later than after the 2 weeks into fall camp. Like, I feel like that's at the latest, because that's kind of, forming really your depth chart in those 2 weeks of, fall camp. And so you've got to really have an idea where you're at that point, because then you're starting to transition into not necessarily preparing for, the season opener. I mean, can't take anyone for granted, I guess, but you're starting to get into the season mode a little bit after those first 2 weeks of fall camp, because those feel like the bulk of really shaping, fall camp or season depth chart. So that to me kind of feels like the spot where you got to, you establish a decision there. That would be kind of my, target range of where I feel like there needs to be some sort of decision. But again, there's no, precedent for this, with it being, a civil lawsuit. They've got to let the investigation play out, and but I got to think BYU's got to make some sort of public comment on what his status is going to be. I mean, I would assume if we're going to have fall camp availability, we'll see those windows of who's out there and who's not, and BYU will probably say you can't speak on who's not participating and whatnot, but still we'll all see who's out there in practice if we get that chance. And so that'll probably tell us too a lot, because those first 2 weeks I think are critical for any season, even when you have a returning starter. Like, that's just a key piece to establishing who are going to be your guys for the season.
Outside of that, as you've been there at Big 12 meetings, what are one or two other major storylines, things you're kind of taking away that we might be addressing in Big 12 media days?
Transfer portals are big. Transfer portal conversation among coaches is a hot topic. Where things land with that. Basketball's only got the one portal window, but it did occur during the NCAA tournament, and then for football, of course, you've got the December period, which is leading up to bowl season and the college football playoff, and then you got the spring portal, which is probably the most controversial piece. And I bring up the portal because whenever this House versus NCAA settlement, if it does go through, and that's kind of this waiting mode right now for everyone, but if it does go through, it has the potential to usher in the College Sports Commission or new enforcement leadership and potentially a new football calendar and establish new kind of guidelines and parameters. And the portal, I would imagine, would be one that coaches would love to see change. And I'm sure they'll be pretty vocal about that or what they would like to see, because I think every program has its, I would say, horror stories from the portal in this past spring or back in December. BYU, they lost Keelan Marion, they lost Harrison Taggart. Now, Taggart was probably, as Jay Hill noted, coming out of spring, it was just 1 and 1A between him and Sialia Sarah. So I think BYU feels really good there. But Keelan Marion was a loss, and he was really talented in spring football, and he's gone off to Miami. But on the flip side, BYU gets Justin Kirkland from Oklahoma State, who, Mike Gundy's here at these meetings too, and BYU gets an interconference, transfer there. So there's good and bad with the portal, but I think that spring window is just kind of tricky because you maybe bank on some guys and you count on some players and then they're gone. And then you kind of have to, backfill on the back end with some new players and kind of recalibrate expectations or maybe what you thought you had. So portal window is big. And I would also add another, piece is just, again, maximizing bids to the college football playoff too. Beyond just what the format is, how are you going to get there? Does it entail scheduling agreements with another conference? Can you, bulk up that non-conference schedule? I think, finding a way to get the most bids possible to be in that position is going to be a big storyline too.
Do you anticipate when the House thing finally gets settled and we're ready to get into camp that it will be a strict 105 roster, or will they allow these teams to kind of grandfather some players into it and just kind of slowly get to that number?
So some of the coaches here, they didn't make cuts, and they're kind of in a position where, they could be in a spot of advantage compared to other teams like BYU who did make cuts. It's still kind of uncertainty as far as, what the number exactly they believe it could be. But it is interesting that there was different approaches to spring. I guess kind of coming into these meetings, I just assumed that pretty much every program cut a bunch of guys, and they're in a similar spot to BYU where they're pretty close or a little bit, over, give or take, at that 105 mark. But I think all these coaches have taken different approaches to how, to juggle that, because that did throw in a wrench of how these rosters are going to be built with, grandfathering that. And look, BYU still got guys too that are in the portal that have not landed anywhere. And maybe they'd be those type of players that are players 106 to 115 hypothetically. But, so they could have those options maybe. But yeah, it's very interesting how the roster construction has been taking shape for all these teams this year, with House versus NCAA still up in the air. And what's crazy is that House versus NCAA became, a talking point. The lawsuit or the settlement, it really became a storyline last year at this time at these meetings. And it just seemed like, okay, it's going to, happen, and it's going to, go into effect, and the new era is here, and it continues just to be delayed. And this calendar year, the new calendar year for college athletics begins July 1st. That's a month away, and there's still not that clarity as to what direction this is going to go.
Hey, Mitch, how do they make the decision on what games and times and networks that they want to release in scheduling? We saw 3 come out for BYU today. We saw 4 come out for Utah. And I guess I'm just curious, how much does the Big 12 try to manage that, or is that just university operated? And what does that stuff mean to you?
So the ESPN Plus games, typically the FCS games the kick times are selected by the school. So BYU plays Portland State. They open the season at 6:00 on ESPN Plus. BYU gets to pick that. So whenever an FCS matchup happens and it's going to ESPN Plus, the school gets the chance to pick the kick time. And I know that in last year for BYU, when it came to that specific kick time, they wanted to highlight kind of the night game environment, and with it being hot, kind of summer, late summer still, and hotter weather, wanted to have a cool down in the evening. So that makes sense. So as far as the other games, maybe conference matches that go on linear television, the goal of also just is spreading every window where you got 10 a.m., 1:30, 5 o'clock, and 8:30. The Big 12's got that luxury to have all four time zones covered. So there's a little bit of a puzzle piece and jigsaw to kind of figure that out. And, BYU, as you can see with these games, they're going to be a late night team. BYU and Stanford gets an 8:15 designation. So you're going to see some late night football with BYU, and ESPN has really enjoyed having BYU in that late night spot. BYU's delivered some big ratings in games they've been a part of. The Baylor game 3 years ago, BYU and Utah was a big ratings boom last year in that rivalry game. So, if you can get, clips 2 million viewers in a game in the late night, that's pretty good viewership for that window. And BYU's kind of had a little bit of a tendency to get that. But early season, I think it's a lot of projecting too. And it's a lot of forecasting who you think are going to be good, who are going to have the storylines involved. That's a big piece to early season kick times. And then, in the season, it becomes either 12 days before or 6 days before they try to figure out just, based on what the on-field product has been that season, and figuring out the best games at that point and putting them on the best linear networks and TV spots. But TV selection is huge, and it's something that's critical because you're seeing with the ESPNs and the ABCs and Fox with Big Noon, like they're really showcasing some of these leagues. And so where you're on television is a big deal, and trying to get the most eyeballs possible.
When it's all said and done, I know we're going back to the playoff. How do you think it shakes out? In the Mitch Harper crystal ball, how do you think that seeding works out?
I think it'll be 5-11 with 11 at-large bids. And honestly, from the standpoint of, that layout, it gives the perception that everyone's got a chance. Everyone can go into a season and have an opportunity. And we can get, deep in the weeds of the playoff committee and their history of, knocking down teams and whatnot. But you have that chance. And the Big 12, if they can elevate its football profile, they should be in a position to have that chance. The 4-4 bids for SEC and Big 10 and 2 for Big 12 ACC that's been tossed out there, the issue with that is just it looks like, you're far inferior. And look, there's been data that's out there that the SEC and Big 10 have got far more bids already, so you can already point to that. But that just puts it out there even more. So I think 5-11 would make a lot of sense for the Big 12 and for the college football playoff. I think it'd be a good system. I'd like to see the 16-team playoff, though, be 1 versus 16, 8 versus 9, not multiple buys for one team. Then that makes it even more confusing if you just go 16-team bracket, set it up. I think people can get on board with that. It's easy to understand. It makes sense. But if you have all these different bids for this league, different bids for them, this seed gets, a 2-round bye, this one gets a 1, that's just too confusing for the casual fan. I think a 16-team bracket could be really fun for college football, and it could be pretty fun. I think that hopefully that's where it ends up going.
Any other nuggets from your Kalani Sitake conversation that stood out to you, Mitch?
We talked about spring portal additions that BYU added with Tiger Bachmeier too, Justin Kirkland. He's excited about those guys. Very bullish about their potential. He also talked. I'm trying to think here because we just got off the interview just moments ago. I also talked to him about the challenges of House versus NCAA and what it creates for BYU. He did get into the roster of how, they might consider, grandfathering if it's allowed. And if that's what it becomes, they might look into that if guys do want to come back. So that was another nugget that he did say. There were other tidbits too, but, kind of big picture of thinking of the Big 12, but we also talked about just how the meetings are structured too, being around the league. Kalani and BYU in general have been really excited to be in the Big 12, and they've made it clear that they feel like this has been a springboard to really highlighting BYU's strengths. And Kalani noted that in my conversation with him and Brian Santiago as well. Brian Santiago, even a couple months ago when I was at the Alamo Bowl talking with him, he said that this has put BYU in a position of strength and a platform, and he kind of talked about the Big 12 and the competitiveness in the league. So yeah, it was really insightful stuff there from Kalani though.
Brian Santiago has been labeled the basketball guy, and I could tell in that press conference he really wanted to reiterate that he understands that football is the front porch of every athletic department, and really stress that was a point of emphasis for him, because there's a lot of people out there that think, okay, well, yeah, basketball and all the headlines that basketball is getting right now with its spending and some of the resources that have been made available to it, but I got to imagine that football is a huge priority to making sure that he stabilizes that as well.
No question. It's an exciting time for I think for BYU sports right now, and I just saw Brian just walking by right here, and he's going off to a meeting right now. But it's I think that for BYU, the BYU football program, I think that there's more resources than I think people realize, and I think also too that BYU still to its core, like football is going to drive the ship, but they're looking to win big in all of it. And Brian's very competitive, and he wants to win big, and he wants BYU to win at the highest levels. And I think that's the right attitude that BYU needs, because you see in these hallways here in Orlando at these meetings, like you're seeing Mike Gundy's and Dave Aranda's and some very successful coaches, Matt Campbell, some of these ADs, some of these basketball coaches, Scott Drew. I mean, guys that have done it at the highest levels, and you got to compete day in, day out against this type of talent. But at the same time, you're also in a league where there's endless, potential, because there's not a set hierarchy really in any of these sports. So it's just kind of a very interesting time, and BYU's trying to seize the opportunity, it seems.
How big is the flip? He started with Oregon, then BYU, back to Oregon, then back to BYU. I don't know if I'd want to get stuck behind him at a Subway restaurant, but it does appear, and I'll let you pronounce his name if you have it off the top of your head. How big of a get is that for BYU?
Alai Kalani-Ovalu. He's a really big get as far as just from the recruiting rankings go. He point to since 2000, 8th highest rated recruit BYU signed since 2000. Now, he's got to play, and we'll see how it goes. He's a mission first guy. He's been called to serve a mission in Colorado. So it's going to take some time for him to enroll at BYU, but really big get. And again, I think it shows the momentum that BYU's experiencing on the recruiting trail. And he's an interior offensive lineman, could play guard or center. I mean, he could play tackle, but I think he's best served in the interior of the offensive line. Good technician, just got a great frame too, and tons of offers. I mean, it's a big get. And BYU, though, this month coming up in June is going to be really interesting, because they have a lot of really high-profile official visitors coming up. It's now the quiet period in college football. That kind of kicks off today, but it's going to be anything but quiet, because what quiet period means is just you can now have recruits come onto your campus. You can't go to their high schools. You can't go to their hometowns, but they're going to be coming to campus. And so it's going to be a busy month in June for recruiting. And honestly, it's the biggest month on the recruiting calendar now for college football coaches. Really, you try to nail down your class by 2 weeks before fall camp kicks off. So then you can enjoy a little bit of a vacation and settle down and get ready for the season. June's kind of the bulk of where you build up these classes, and BYU's got, Ryder Lions are going to be visiting next month in June. I mean, they've got some, 4-star prospects that are coming through. So it'll be interesting to see if they can continue the momentum that they have built, because it's a class right now for 2026 that's knocking on the door of being a top 25 class nationally. And if they could add a guy like a Ryder Lyons, you're getting into that conversation of being among one of the best classes in the country, and then that's going to be the challenge in front of Kalani Sitake and his staff.
Never a dull moment. Mitch, appreciate your time. Thanks for hanging out with us.
You bet, guys. Take care.
Mitch Harper, Cougar Insider, KSLSports.com. Again, more of the same when it comes, but there isn't any. You got to ask the question to Kalani, but there's really nothing that he can add that hasn't already been said by BYU or by Brian Santiago.
Sounds like they've already got kind of a unified front.
It does.
And a direction that they all want to go. The problem is every time you bump into it, it's just going to be a big question. My guess is, much like the DUI for former Doak Walker Award winner was the Big 12 Media Day topic, and your head coach said, wow, that's happened to me 1,000 times. He just got unlucky. You want to make sure that everybody's polished up.
Yep.
Because
can't get off the rails.
Yep. Every seat you sit in, it's going to be, so tell us about your quarterback.
Yep.
And that's not just for Kalani. That's for every player that you roll through there. Last year they had 3 players, or was there 4?
I want to say there were 4.
Might have been 4.
Maybe I'm mistaken on that, but yeah, that's.
I think they had 2 offensive players and 2.
Yeah, I think they brought 4 players last year.
Connor Pay, Chase Roberts.
Didn't they bring the punter?
Jacob Robinson. Oh, did they?
Was that?
Oh,
or was that 2 years ago?
No, I think you're right. Oldroyd.
I think maybe.
Was that his name?
Anyway.
I think they did bring the punter. Rico.
Suave.
Yeah, Rico. Yeah, who knows? Who's Oldroyd?
He was the place kicker.
Yeah, he was the place kicker.
That
those weird green shoes.
You were not happy with at a certain point.
Was I not?
Or wait a minute, no, he was good last year, right?
No, that was a different kicker last year.
Was that a different kicker last year?
Yeah, that was a different kicker last year. Oldroyd was the year before.
The hands got sideways with.
Yes.
Will Farron is.
That's right.
Yeah, Will Farron is he's.
Don't you call out St. Farron. Don't do that.
Yeah, St. Farron's dialed in.
Gosh.
But Oldroyd at some point I think did tick me off.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Oh, yeah. He had a missed kick that was bad.
Yeah, several.
Yeah.
Well, you remember he came on and had that hot streak, and remember they made some big deal about
Jake the Make.
Yeah, Jake the Make, and he had those green shoes that was like a big deal.
Hit the game winner in Kalani's.
I think they even auctioned off his green shoes.
No,
I think so.
Don't say it unless it's true.
Oh yeah.
Come on, Ernie, you're going to need to apologize for that one. All right, 2:30, Hans and Scotty. We'll spin the wheel next. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Loaded, and it's time to talk some sports. This is Sports Roulette with Hans and Scotty on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Bottom of the 5th, Tennessee.
Those are slim pickings.
Up on Oklahoma, 3-1.
Slim pickings.
Pitch a little low and away, ball 1.
Oh, Scotty can't even help himself. He's got to call the game.
Natural.
When he sees softball, it's laser locked.
Scotty time.
I am not letting either one of you disrespect the beautiful sport of softball.
I'm not, believe me. I mean, it's incredible entertainment. 3-1, huh?
Yeah.
So Tennessee's a 7th seed.
Oh, they're going to pull the pitcher.
What? They better not. They better.
Wait, who is it? Tennessee and who?
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma just had a double play that was ridiculous. It was a catch out on a fly ball.
Yeah.
And she got it from midfield to first plate before, whatever runner. She got almost to second, had to turn around.
Oh, no, they're keeping her in.
Yeah, you aren't going to pull her.
I wouldn't think so.
No.
Because she's been dealing.
Yeah, she's dialing up. Oklahoma can't even get a hit off her. Anyways, we're loaded on Sports Roulette.
Yep. Softball at the 35s right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. With that, Lloyd, fire up that wheel.
Expensive team equals big-time games.
BYU is playing some big games, Scotty.
Money's paying off.
Money's paying off. So listen to this. BYU fans, you should be excited. And by the way, I don't like to promote this because I'm on the BYU football call. So, let's make football the marquee, right?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Some of these games. Okay, how about this one? UConn at the TD Garden in Boston.
Yeah.
BYU versus UConn.
In Boston.
TD Garden in Boston.
Home of the green
Monster.
There you go.
Monster.
I mean, that's ridiculous. And by the way, that's A.J. DeMonte's home.
Yes.
So-
there's a reason they're playing that game.
You're taking it back home.
Yeah.
And then they've got games against Clemson in Madison Square Garden.
The Garden.
In the Garden.
Lloyd, you're not helping.
They've got themselves in a tournament with Georgetown, Miami, and Dayton.
The Hoyas?
Yeah, the Hoyas.
Hoyas.
The Hoyas.
And the Hurricanes. The Hoyas. They've got a season opener against Villanova in Vegas.
I'm telling you, man.
And then
This is like you're like the Harlem Globetrotters. Hey, you'll go anywhere and play anybody.
And then Rothstein just tweeted out yesterday that they're going to meet up with Wisconsin.
The Badgers.
The Badgers. November 21st in Salt Lake City at the Delta Center.
At the Delta Center. That's a hell of a
Delta
schedule.
Center.
Are you kidding me?
Delta Center.
Are you kidding me with all this? Wisconsin, Villanova,
North Carolina.
You got, it's crazy.
Here's the thing. If any of these games overlap with football, Greg's ditching you.
No, he will not.
Oh, he will.
You're saying me and Shep?
I don't know who's going to do it, but it ain't going to be Greg. If he has a chance to call BYU West Virginia or BYU North Carolina, where do you think he's going to go?
BYU West Virginia?
No. You're getting dumped.
Not a chance.
You are getting dumped.
I would have never thought so, but I think so. I think that's happening.
No. Well, let's see.
It's going to be you and McCann.
We got
Text him right now. Ask him. Say, hey, are you going to be leaving me?
I'm not going to put him on the spot like that. November 21st. Let's see. November 21st. Okay, we're okay there. Well, he's going to have to call November 21st, BYU, Wisconsin, and then November 22nd, BYU, Cincinnati football.
Is that in Provo?
That's at Cincinnati.
Oh.
It's in Cincy.
Oh, he'll get somebody's booster plane to get him out there.
Yeah, he will.
He'll be fine.
He will. He'll figure out a way. One thing I know about Greg is I don't think he'll miss a football game.
Really? With
Do
that
you
lineup?
guys think so?
Well, normally I would say no, but that schedule?
I'm going to have to put out a bat light to Rubes.
Is basketball king?
Right now.
Now you're just trying to get my goat. Both of you trying to get my goat.
I'm just saying.
No, basketball
sure?
will never be king.
Is basketball now the front porch?
Even BYU UConn in the Garden.
The Garden.
No, it's still
Right next to the monster.
But they don't currently have a date attached to BYU and UConn that I've seen. Have you seen a date?
I've not.
I don't know, man. But that's going to be an interesting back-to-back. November 21st and November 22nd. Greg's going to have
We're
to.
going to find out if he likes you more.
Oh, it comes down to Hands versus Durant.
Durant, that's right. Hands or Durant?
We know who's going to win that battle.
Okay, so there you go. You answered your own question.
He loves Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch
All Mark's got on you is ears. That's it.
and height.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like in terms of the relationship. I think Greg loves you equally. He's just been around Mark. longer.
No, that's not true. No, Greg's made that very clear. Very, very clear. Mark is his favorite. And Mark's made that really clear to me as
He's
well.
like, just know you'll always be number 2.
It's like, does he laugh when he's with you? I'm like, no. That should tell you everything.
Frankly, I can't
Laughs
get
with
him
me.
to stop laughing in my broadcast.
In fact, I have to tell him, hey, Greg, stop laughing.
We got to be serious, Greg.
Does he offer to pay your bill? No. Does he you? Yes.
I haven't paid for a IHOP in years. All right. Lloyd, spin it.
For once, college football does the right thing.
Absolutely does the right thing. They're the late, great, and everybody's favorite, Mike Leach, was just right there on the edge of having the necessary win percentage to get him into the College Football Hall of Fame. To be a coach in the College Football Hall of Fame, you had to have won 60% of your games that you coached.
It's fair.
Mike Leach was at 59.5.
Oh, man, so close.
Today, the College Football Hall of Fame lowered their winning percentages for coaches to be allowed in the Hall of Fame to 59.5 in honor of Mike Leach.
That's cool.
And so Mike Leach will now be inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame.
I like that, man. That's, he was so creative, so inventive. Washington State, Texas Tech.
And ended up at Mississippi State.
Mississippi State.
Yep. Turned all those programs around.
He did. And what he did is he made college football fun.
Yes.
Whether it was Gardner Minshew or...
That interview we had with him is probably one of my favorite interviews we've ever had.
Yeah, we've always had good times with him. And so...
all the guy really does is a coin toss.
So I picked the luckiest guy.
Yeah, the guy that won on the wheel or Price is Right.
Price is Right.
To go out and do his coin toss for him.
So this guy, he comes up and tells, the way he tells stories too.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, I think, was he eating a sandwich when he was talking to us?
He was walking. I think he was walking.
Oh, was
he? Yeah, I think he was walking to in between facilities or something like that because you could hear him.
So his name is going into the College Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah, because they lowered that percentage for him.
Let's go.
All right, one more, Lloyd. Spin it.
Hey, Mellencamp, shut up.
Ooh. Seriously. What a moron. Okay, now, I'm not a big fan of...
John Cougar Mellencamp?
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of... what's the former Colts punter? That does all the talk show stuff. And he's
Pat McAfee.
Pat McAfee.
Yeah.
Okay, so did you see when Pat McAfee took the mic in Indy?
Oh, yeah.
And introduced people and then turned and was like, we got a bunch of New York,
send your butts back to...
Yeah, this, that, and other. And and then the Pacers fans booed all the New York elites. I don't know, all the dorks. What are they, like Tracy Morgan and...
Spike Lee and Timothy Chalamet.
And...
Oh, Ben Stiller was there.
Ben Stiller. Yeah, so Pat McAfee was like, yeah, these clowns will send their butts back to New York. And, it was funny, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Well, John Mellencamp didn't think so.
Oh, jeez.
John Mellencamp just sent out a big social media push. He said, the Knicks-Pacers games have been very entertaining for anyone who likes basketball or sports. I attended Game 4 in Indy. Hoosier hospitality. I was embarrassed when somebody, under whose direction I don't know, called out some of the people who'd made the trip from New York to support their team and in turn support our team. The audience booed these people. I'd say that was not Hoosier hospitality. One could only say it's poor sportsmanship. I was not proud to be a Hoosier, and I've lived here my entire life. On behalf of most of Hoosier Town, I would like to apologize for our poor behavior. I'm sure the Pacers had nothing to do with this smackdown. John Mellencamp. Shut up.
Oh, jeez. What a dork.
Go away, you dope.
This guy was supposed to be like a legendary rocker, and he's like, hey, let's be civil with
Everybody's being mean.
Shut up here.
Get out of here, man. Have you been to New York? Do you know how miserable Knicks fans are?
Yeah, didn't they just pummel a Pacers fan with garbage?
By the way.
Yeah, they did.
Although, a Pacer...
the last laugh now.
Pacer fan, stabbed a dude.
What?
Yeah.
That guy?
Yeah, like a Pacer guy, like some guy, they were watching a game at a bar, and there was a New York Knicks fan at this Pacer bar in Indianapolis was making a stir, and this guy stabbed him.
Oh, not the fan that, because Hal Burton paid for that guy to come.
No,
not that guy.
No.
A different Indy fan stabbed a New York guy?
Yeah. By the way, here's the comments that Pat McAfee said. Given a microphone, this is going into the fourth quarter. And he said, Indianapolis, Indiana, we got some big wigs from the big city in the building. Spike Lee is here. Ben Stiller is here. Timothy Chalamet is here. Let's send these sons of bees back to New York with their ears ringing. Let's turn this bleep up. Come on. That's fun.
That's great, man. I don't even like the guy, but he's made a lot of money.
He's carved out a nice little niche for himself.
He's got people tricked.
Yep.
People forget he's a punter.
Yeah.
Somehow he got into WWE somehow.
Yeah.
I saw him I was watching a SmackDown and I saw him and I'm like, how's this guy with the no sleeves, dopey arm guy? How does he everywhere?
Hey, by the way, speaking of WWE, I didn't have time to get this on the wheel, but this is just coming out of these Big 12 meetings. The Big 12 and WWE are expanding their partnership. WWE will hold several episodes of Friday Night SmackDown in Big 12 markets the night before football games.
What?
They even have, look at the logo.
Come again?
The WWE Big 12 partnership.
Big 12 is partnering with WWE?
Yeah.
What?
Includes a week 0 show in Ireland before Kansas State and Iowa State, and an Orlando show before a Central Florida game.
And you have something looks like you want to say. What you thinking right now?
That this has got to be AI.
No. Chris Manini's reporting it.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
What does this even mean?
That the Big 12 and
but we're gonna bury Utah BYU.
Yeah, and WWE, they're yeah.
Does this mean that I get Jey Uso and Dominic Mysterio on the broadcast?
Yeah,
with Greg.
There you go. Hey, now we're talking. All right.
Does this mean John Cena's gonna bust through the door
and do a little face thing?
Oh yeah, he's the face guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, the wrong
Macho.
guy there. That was Macho Man.
All right. Take a break. Wrap this bad boy up next. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, let's go to the 7th.
Let's do it.
Oh, no, the bottom of the 6th. So OU is going to be up to plate here.
Yeah, with the 3-1 or with down 3-1. See, that's a hustle, man. You don't see the baseball players play with that kind of hustle.
No, but you also don't see them nearly air out.
Don't worry about that part.
Hey, here's the good news. We are at the top of the batting order on OU side of things. So our top-end lady hitters are going to be stepping up to plate. You know, we're looking now. You start to get the tendencies and the rhythms of that pitch. I know what the timing is. You know, all the pitches have been very flat. So we know what we're looking for.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well,
there's your softball talk. I don't know, man.
At the 50. It's been every 50.
They did an hour pregame for this Tennessee-Oklahoma softball game. They did an hour pregame. That means Lloyd's got to do at least 2 hours.
2 hours.
On Black Friday, Utah versus Kansas. I want you and Christian. I want that when the sun comes up, I want you cracking Mike.
Yep.
Okay. You got it.
Thank you, buddy.
Love it.
Let's see if Christian's going to agree to that.
That's the kind of dedication.
I got to admit, though, I am dorky. Like, football is starting to get me amped up a little bit.
It's you can kind of smell it a little bit.
The kick times are starting to show up, and now, school is done, so now all the kids start to head out to their camps.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have to spend money on camps this year for football.
I'm paying for my first one this year. Very excited about that.
Well, you're paying for your first 3 because there's one is never good enough. And this isn't like when you and I used to go to camp.
No.
Parents would flip $84 and you'd go onto a college campus for 3 nights and 4 days. And
I got to pay like $80 for some like helmet protector thingy that goes on the top of the helmet.
You talking about that padded thing?
Yeah, it's called a Guardian cap.
Oh.
And it's required. You have to buy it.
What?
Yeah.
For the top of their helmet.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Do you remember the helmets they used to put us in?
Oh, yeah. Like
Didn't even fit, I'm sure.
Lloyd's kids are wearing better helmets for Halloween than we had back in the day.
That is the truth.
Those Huffies.
Yeah.
If I got to bring in an old helmet, I'll do it.
Oh, by the way, there was a guy, so we had like this parents' night. I know we got to wrap up. But there was this guy who, they said, okay, these are the helmets that we'll issue your kids. But there's a guy over here that will be selling helmets if you want to buy your own helmet. And it reminded me, got thinking, because I remember Rock was coming to you saying, hey, I want to buy my own helmet.
He was.
So I went over just to talk to the guy. You're looking at like $1,200. And I'm like, okay, well, my kid's like 14. I said, so what happens when he needs a new helmet because he gets bigger? Like he's in the first quarter of puberty right now.
Yeah.
And he said, the head usually stays the same size. This will be a one-time purchase. I'm like, bull crap.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
There's no way the head's going to stay the same size. That dude wants me to drop $1,200, and then by the time the end of the sophomore year, my kid doesn't have circulation to his brain because that helmet's so tight.
I'm just telling you right now, too, that these helmet companies, they are scamming the kids because Rock comes home with all the percentages. Well, I can't wear the Riddell because Riddell's, there's a 34% increase in CTE in kids between 16 and 18. Do you want me to get CTE?
If you don't give me this helmet, I'm going to die.
That's a 38% increase. You could save me a lot by... If we have to go through concussion protocol, that takes me off the field for 3 weeks, and it
is all a racket.
Oh, they're going to get you. Somebody's going to get you, and it doesn't matter. Look, I've had kids in band, in orchestra, theater, debate, football, you name it. Somebody's going to get you. It doesn't matter what your kids do. Somebody's going to be there with their hands open, ready to take your money.
In baseball, like every kid pretty much now has like 2 bats. You only have 1 bat. You always just have 1 bat.
Oh, you got to be kidding me.
You have one that's heavier and one that's lighter. That's how you adjust on the speed of the pitcher. I'm like, how about you adjust your own timing?
I told Rock,
what is wrong with you guys?
I said, Rock, your grandpa played in a 1-bar face mask.
Yeah,
but their life expectancy was like 38. Stop it. Stop it. You don't need to buy a helmet.
Ooh, nice strikeout there. All right, Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. JJ and Alex coming up next.